Hi there, this is Kathy Brennan. I'm here to help you look better, feel better, and do better. Today I'm going to talk about being defensive. And the question is, how do I stop being so defensive in relationships? When we think about defensiveness, there's like a wall there to protect something. So when something needs defending, think of a fortress around a castle, the wall. It's protecting what's of value. It's protecting what's inside the wall, the castle. So it's this barrier. Now, it's really tough when people get defensive because often they're angry and aggressive. So you might be that person, you get defensive and you get angry and aggressive, and then the person will come back angry and aggressive back at you. So it just creates this kind of messy situation. So if you're giving a defensive response, you need to ask yourself, what are you protecting? What are you protecting? Now, I know I've done this a lot. I've been very defensive, and what I'm protecting is my reputation, or I might defend someone else's reputation, but often I'm protecting uh, a, a very small and frail self-worth. I don't like myself, and instead of exposing how vulnerable I am, how what I don't understand, I get defensive and I put up a wall and I get aggressive. Sometimes we defend ourselves because we want to be right and someone corrects us, and our ego just doesn't want to be wrong, so we defend what we're saying instead of listening to this new information that might be the truth. And it's so funny because we will defend stuff whether it's right or not, because we, again, feel so crummy about ourselves inside. None of us wants to look foolish. We defend what we just said or did because it looks foolish and someone called us out on it. So it's always a question of, what am I protecting? And then it goes both ways. So if you hear a defensive response for someone, you can ask yourself, what are they protecting? It could be they've got a frail self-image, even though that's not what it sounds like at all. Maybe they're being aggressive with you, but it's really that they're protecting themselves. It can be that they just can't deal with being wrong. You just corrected them on something, and so they'll be defensive and they'll come back at you and try to make you wrong because they are so uncomfortable being wrong or feeling foolish. So let's do an example. Let's say you're out playing frisbee at a park and you go to catch the frisbee and you drop it, and there's a little 5-year-old there, and the 5-year-old says, "You're dumb." Would you defend yourself against that 5-year-old? Would you think right away, well, that's just a dumb 5-year-old. They don't even know what it means to catch frisbee. Would your defenses go up right away? So it's a good question. So what am I defending? Does that happen in that situation? Or in any situation where there's a child there and they say something, do I get defensive right away because I'm trying to protect myself? And what am I protecting? So let's bring it up a notch. Let's say you're doing the same game, you're playing frisbee, and a 25-year-old young man walks by as you miss the frisbee, and he says, "Nice try, Grandma," and keeps walking. Would you feel defensive in that situation? Would you feel like, oh, that punk, he doesn't know what he's talking about? Or would you say, that person didn't even throw the frisbee to me right? Or would you say, the grass was slippery? Would you have to come up with some reason to defend yourself against another adult? So what are you protecting? Trying to protect your athletic ability, or do you not want to look foolish, or do you just want to be perfect or right? Now you might ask, well, why did he say that in the first place? That was mean. Why would he say, nice try, Grandma? You know what the answer is? I do not know. I'm not in his head. I haven't lived his life. I don't know what it is. And it really has nothing to do with me anyways. My choice is, how am I going to respond? What am I going to say to another person, still a stranger, that says something to me? Am I going to defend myself? And if so, what am I protecting? So now let's say your spouse or a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, you do something and they're critical and they call you out on it. Or they say they get mad at what you just did. Do you get defensive? Do you get defensive? Do you say, well, you don't know all the work I went to? Or, do you just say, well, that's stupid. You don't even know what you're talking about? Do you go right into defensive mode? And if you do, got to keep going back to that question. What are you protecting? Are you protecting a frail sense of self? Are you protecting that ego that just cannot be wrong? Are you protecting something that doesn't even need protecting? Are you protecting just this, I don't want to feel foolish. I'm so uncomfortable feeling foolish, so I'm going to defend myself? When we have a good sense of self, when we know who we are and what we do, and we're okay that people do things differently than we do, and we know that we're trying our best and doing our best at things we do during the day, then we don't have to be defensive. If I bake a cake and it flops and someone says, oh, well, that doesn't taste very good, or that doesn't look very good, if I know I did my best, I can laugh it off. I don't have to go defend it. I don't have to defend my effort because I already know I did the best I could. So if your spouse has a different opinion or doesn't think you did something right, you will only defend it if you yourself don't think it's right, or you don't think you did something wrong, correct, didn't try your best. Or if you don't think they're entitled to their own opinion, that they got to believe everything the way you believe it. If we just allow people to have their own opinions, we won't get defensive. I just was watching this interesting show. I want to finish with this weekend. It was Dog Whisperer, but then there was another show called Dog Impossible. I hadn't seen this before. And there were these two dogs. They were living in the same house, and they were getting along, but something happened, and all of a sudden they started to fight. And then every time they were fighting, they couldn't get along. And what this Dog Impossible guy figured out is their aggressive behavior was, one of them was anxiety. He was very anxious, and so he would get real aggressive. He was hiding his anxiety. He was protecting his anxiety. And the other one wanted attention from the humans. So any threat of someone else getting the attention, he got real aggressive. And so it was interesting how these dogs, their aggressive, scary behavior was the wall, that what they were protecting was their nervousness and anxiety and insecurities. I just thought that totally related to people. As we come at people and say nasty things, it's only because we're protecting a bad view of ourselves. What they did, this was also fascinating. The owner, the human, left the house and then came back in, and she was supposed to just ignore the dog's bad behavior. So the dog was trying to get her attention and jumping up and barking, and she just stood against the wall and ignored him. She didn't look at him. She didn't react. And then the dog started crying and whining and pacing back and forth. And it was real sad to watch. But the Dog Impossible guy pointed out nothing bad is happening to that dog right now. The dog just could not calm himself down. In fact, there was another little boy in the room and he had to leave. He was crying. He just didn't like to see his dog acting that way. But what eventually happened was the dog calmed down. The dog learned to calm himself down. And then he laid down, and then the owner kneeled down and petted him. So she rewarded him for the good behavior. She rewarded him for calming down. And the other thing is, the dog taught himself to calm down. He could, but he would never learn to calm himself down as long as every time he walked in and started jumping up, he got attention and he got response from the human. I thought it was fascinating. So as to, like, if we have a child or a spouse or a friend or whatever, being aggressive to us or behaving badly, when we feed into that or try to fix it, they don't learn to fix it themselves. So I thought that was really, really good. So how do you stop being defensive in relationships? Ask yourselves, what am I protecting? What am I protecting? And when you get to that, you can work on having a better, healthier sense of self that doesn't need defense. Kathy Brennan here. When you're not defensive, you're going to look better. You're definitely going to feel better. And you're going to do better. Have a great day.